All right, we are now joined on the Sharks Audio Network by Francis Daniels, making his return to the Audio Network. He's a busy man because he is the creator of Big Head Hockey, which is doing all sorts of phenomenal content. I always know that the Sharks are doing well in terms of popularity just because in the last, I don't know, since you put out the They Never Should Have Let This Happen video, the amount of people that text me your videos has gone up exponentially. But what's going on, man? You enjoying this wild NHL season?
I sure am. It's a lot of fun to watch. I don't know if I mentioned it in the last interview, but I am a Canucks fan.
Yeah.
So, that's a bit of a tough sledding season for us. But watching everyone else go, like San Jose has been incredible. But then, you got the Ducks. They're looking incredible. Utah is a really fun team too. The East has a lot of crazy stories. It's just been a great year for hockey.
So, I don't know if you can see my shirt, but I got the Sharks Pro Shop to make this because when we acquired Kiefer, they were asking him, he played that one game against Colorado, and then they talked to him about, the other side of the Olympic break, and he said, we'll light the fire, and then I don't know if you can see this, it said, and come ready to rage, which I was like, dude, Kiefer Sherwood is an incredible talker, maybe the best in the NHL. And the NHL has some great interviews, especially, on the Sharks, we've got several guys, whether it's Ryan Reeves, Mario Ferraro, but Kiefer Sherwood, I don't know, was that painful to lose him considering how cool of a story arc his career has been, a guy who was up and down and was suddenly finding his game?
Yeah, he's a guy, if we were in the playoffs, I'd probably have a huge picture of him on my wall and just go to sleep looking at it. But he is like an incredible player. I kind of came to terms with losing him early on because he's on last year of his deal. And, I really want to see him succeed. I don't need to see him go through a rebuild. I think going to the Sharks is just perfect for him. Like some people, I guess a contract, it's like 6 M's, which is, it's a lot of bread, but the cap is going up. And he's the kind of guy that he's only getting better every single year. 5 years from now, who knows? He could have a whole new, maybe he's a net front guy. Maybe he's got a whole different layer to his game. I love him. I think Sharks fans should just be fired up for him.
He's such an instigator out there on the ice. I did not realize how much smack he talked out there when he was playing. And then I don't know if you saw the clip. If you haven't, I'll send it to you, but it's from the game against the Islanders. He's in Sorokin's face, just kind of screening him throughout the entire time. And you hear the linesman yell, he's like, Kiefer, we don't want none of that blank. Just escaped. He's like, you all right, Soro? I was just like, this is phenomenal. He's such an S-talker, and when he scores goals, he gets fired up. And just from your view, did you see the evolution in his game? I'm wondering how quickly you started to see him turn into a guy who could be a 20-goal scorer, which he is now. That's a new career high.
Yeah, you know what? I remember following this more than anyone, I guess. It was just a kind of right when he signed with us. I don't know if you know the story, but Quinn Hughes actually talked to Canucks management and wanted him signed in Vancouver. Really? They just played Nashville in the first round, and he's a UFA. And Hughes said that this was the most difficult guy to play against, I guess, maybe paraphrasing a bit, but he said he was such a pest to play against. I want him on the team. And so they brought him in. And before that, I guess his career high was maybe 10 goals. It wasn't that, he was bouncing between the AHL, NHL. Rick Tocchet talked to him and said, you have the potential to be a 20-goal guy. I was like, okay. So start of the season, he gets a couple, I guess around the 10-game mark, he has 2 or 3 goals. It's like, okay, he's a fourth-line guy. He plays a game against Colorado early December. He scores a hat trick, including one where he strips Makar, breakaway, shorthanded snipe, and then gets the empty netter for the hat trick. I think right around then, everyone started to pay attention. So he went up the lineup. He started, his shot is so good that he could work on almost any line. And then after that season, it kind of felt like a fluke, or it kind of felt like, okay, first time this guy's ever done it. He's 29. Coming into this season, he was one of the main offensive drivers for Vancouver. There were times where I think a game against St. Louis early on, he was easily our best forward. The kind of, Pettersson, he's doing his thing, making some good passes here and there. But Sherwood's in on the forecheck. He's heavy, and he's getting, breakaways, and he's huge celebrations, get everyone's fired up. The progression is pretty insane, but he just has a good offensive instinct and an elite shot. And when those two things are put together, and then you start feeling it and the mojo's going, and you're useful in other parts of the game where you're hitting and you're instigating, it's you can play anywhere.
No,
You're so good.
He is, and I don't think he's leading the league in hits anymore since he had a little bit of time missed due to injury. But I have just watched him totally clean, totally legitimate, good hockey hits, but he goes out there and brings that level of physicality to the Sharks, which is, it's fun to watch, man. Like he's immediately just become, I think, one of everyone's favorites because he plays so hard. He gets fired up. He's such a good interview. And, it's the way that he also spoke to the Vancouver media when he found out he was being traded. I mean, that was kind of those things where you go, oh, this is a character guy. I mean, he spoke glowingly about the franchise. He had things to say about every level of the organization. Like, he doesn't have to do that, but he went out of his way to talk at length about all the people who impacted him.
He's just an incredible guy. And actually, one more thing. So beginning of this season for the Canucks, Braden Coots made the team. He was 18 years old, just off the 2025 draft. Kind of a surprise he made the team. He went out of his way to talk about how important Sherwood was for, his month on the team, working with everyone. Sherwood was the guy who wanted to make sure that Coots was in a good spot, like he was in, right headspace and everything, had someone to talk to. So it kind of goes to show, like, this guy's 30 years old. He spent time in between the AHL and NHL. He could be a chippy guy. He could have a bit of an ego, but no, like, he's salt of the earth, humble guy who just does everything for the crest on his jersey. It's so sweet to watch.
No, it's awesome. It's a great story. Another great story, of course, is Macklin Celebrini's continued star rise. I'm not trying to make myself sound smart or anything because I'm usually far from it, but I was not at all surprised that Macklin had a star turn in the Olympics. I thought to myself, oh, if you put him out there with that level of talent, I was like, it's only going to accelerate and amplify his game. And that's exactly what happens. And I don't know if you were expecting that to the same extent, but just your reactions to him becoming that much more of a star by way of his performance in the Olympic Games.
Yeah, you know what? The goal scoring was something that kind of stood out to me. I guess it makes sense. You're playing with two of the best playmakers ever, but I don't know, 6 goals, I think it was in the end. That's really, really impressive at the Olympics at 19 years old. He worked really well on the line. Like, if you want to have the perfect teammate for Connor McDavid, you want someone who's great at battling for the puck, great on the forecheck, and who can think the game as quickly as him. So, if San Jose wants to pick up McDavid, like, that'd be a pretty good, I guess, first line center, put Macklin on the wing. But yeah, I guess I wasn't too surprised. He seems like he always rises to the occasion. So I don't know what that says about him going forwards, but if San Jose does make the playoffs, like, I don't know, maybe they're a first round win. Maybe you want to bet on Celebrini.
I mean, that's the thing is, like, at this point, to me, I think it's going to be more difficult for the Sharks to get into the postseason than it would be for them to potentially play the role of spoiler if they got in, because I think that Macklin is such a disruptive force that if he got in, they would be in that situation where they could upset a top team. Not that I'm getting ahead of myself. I see that within the realm of possibilities. That line of McKinnon, McDavid, Celebrini, I think to myself in terms of absurd collections of talents in sports history and in all sports. And I don't know that there is one that is truly at the top, but I would have a hard time believing that there's been many combinations of talent of 3 respective players, that there's more talent in a collection like that. I mean, here in the Bay Area, we saw Steph Curry and Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson all at the peak of their games together. And that was my direct comparison, just because that was another absurd collection of talent. But that line, I mean, did you ever think that something like that could become a reality? I guess maybe that's a better place to start.
No, I really didn't. And I think this might even be a line where you look back on in 20 years before you can really appreciate it, when we see how these careers play out, because McKinnon could be a top 20 player of all time. McDavid could be top, how high do you want to go with McDavid? Yeah. And then Celebrini is so good in his second year. He's tracking exactly like Sidney Crosby. It's okay. Like, maybe this is the best line of all time. I also want to maybe bring it up one level. You got Cale Makar on defense when the game time is going, as crunch time is going, and you got Cale Makar, Celebrini, and then I guess you also had Crosby on the third line at the Olympics. I mean, yeah. Were you cheering for Team Canada at any point?
Unless they were playing the U.S. Because obviously Macklin Celebrini and that whole storyline being here, like, I wanted Canada to get in the gold medal game. I wanted the U.S. to win just because I feel like that's how it should be. Like, just looking back at all the great battles these teams have had over the years. But there was a part of me that when the U.S. won, it was like, oof, that would have been huge for Celebrini if he had, hit the game winner or been part of a gold medal team. But I feel like, and I know this sounds really cheesy, everyone won by watching that Olympic Games and that Olympic tournament and that gold medal game. I think that's going to go down as one of the all-time international competitions in all sports, just because the entertainment. I mean, the amount of times that I thought, oh my God, is Canada going to lose in the early rounds? Is the U.S. going to lose? And to watch these guys rise to the occasion and prove that they were still the cream of the crop. And then the parallel between the women's final and the men's final, I mean, just resounding, echoing each other that way. You couldn't ask for anything better out of an Olympic Games or an international competition.
No, yeah, easy to say with the Sharks jersey on, but yeah, cheering for Celebrini. I guess up here in Canada it got a little bit dark afterwards, but that's okay. I think the tournament was probably the best Olympics I've ever watched. I remember, the earliest one I watched was 2010. I guess I'm a little younger than you, but like every single Olympics I've rewatched and I've gone through, it's been exciting, but it's also been okay. It's slower. It's a bit more structured in a certain way where they don't want to make mistakes. Whereas this year it felt like the top teams knew how good they were and they were going out for blood, and it was just incredible all tournament. I loved it.
No, the speed was off the hook, just absolutely unbelievable. And the line that didn't last the same way was when they had Tom Wilson with Celebrini and McDavid.
Oh, yeah.
And that was sick as well. And I kept thinking, like, I think this is what they want to have with Sherwood, because they put him at the top line initially, but you could tell that wasn't quite Sherwood's game. But I don't know, we could go down that wing a lot longer. I did want to ask you about the parallels between Taylor Hall 2018 MVP and what we're seeing with Macklin Celebrini, because I remember the first time I heard the MVP chants for Celebrini in the building this year. I want to say it was December, and I got chills, man. And just having that moment, because, I'd been in the building, in other places in the Bay Area, when you hear those MVP chants for the first time, it's pretty special. And I had, to see this new era developing to where people were taking it seriously with Celebrini. I just wanted to ask your opinion on the parallels there between what we saw in 2018.
That's actually that's a great question. So yeah, for anyone, I guess, who doesn't remember, 2018 was the year when it felt like the MVP race wasn't necessarily about who's the individual best player, but more about who's the most valuable player, which, it's the name of the trophy. So it definitely, it's probably what you should consider time to time. This season, I think if you were to really pick the best player, I think it's still between McDavid and McKinnon. I've been pushing for Kucherov every now and then. He's all the way over in Tampa Bay, and it's not as big of a market, but what he's done in the last 3 months has just been stupid. Like he's playing at 180 point pace, I think, in the last 3 months. That's ridiculous. But what Macklin is doing on San Jose is almost, it reminds me of Luka Doncic back on the Mavericks when they weren't good enough to be a cup contender, or they weren't good enough to be a ring contender, but they had Luka Doncic, who was so good that he made them a playoff team. That's what Macklin is doing in hockey, which you never, ever see. And that's what Taylor Hall kind of did in 2018. So for reference, I also pulled up the WAR data, so wins above replacement, which I guess for anyone who doesn't know, it's just like a catch-all stat for how good someone is. Macklin right now, he's 8th in the NHL, which is really good. It's really good. And there's definitely some caveats to it too. Yeah. WAR as a stat values finishing efficiency really highly, which is a little bit weird on a single season. Like Morgan Geekie has a lot of goals and he doesn't take many shots. So he's the 7th best player in this stat, which is kind of silly to me. Macklin is number 8. I don't see another Shark on the top 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. It's all Macklin leading this team. And if they make the playoffs, I think if you're a voter, you kind of have to look back at the Taylor Hall situation where he carried the Devils into the playoffs. But at the same time, if you're a voter, you kind of have to consider Kucherov. I think if I was voting, I would put Macklin on my ballot, but I don't think I would pick him right now, unfortunately.
It's hard just because the Sharks are not a top tier team. They're in a battle for a playoff spot at the lower end of the wild card. So, he's not surrounded by the same amount of talent, and he's not, he's not doing it all on his own, but the offense in particular clearly works through him. But the consistency has been Very impressive. I wanted to ask you about another guy who's coming on, and I always flash back to your "they never should have let this happen" that you put out over the summer when Michael Misa was drafted by San Jose, and just his sudden ascension. All of a sudden, he's scoring goals, he's picking up points, and obviously, he started out the year. He was on the bench, I think, for the first 4 or 5 games. Comes in, gets a goal, gets a couple of points, starts rolling, goes to World Juniors, and then comes back, and then has then there's the Olympic break. All these things kind of interrupted his normal flow. It's not been a normal season for anyone, I could make the argument, but suddenly his ability to jump into the play, his ability to play smart defense, his ability to shoot, his aggression, like all of a sudden that's starting to come into play. And you're reminded, like, oh yeah, this guy, there was a debate about whether or not he would be higher than Schaefer for a real reason. And not to say that Schaefer hasn't, been absolutely amazing, because he has been without question. But, Misa has suddenly started to show everyone that, oh yeah, he's a legit player, and, it's not going to take very long for him to figure things out.
Yeah. I mean, Michael Misa as a prospect is so incredible. If you just look back at his junior career, there's, I guess, maybe a 6 month period where you think, oh, this guy might not be a superstar. Every other, every other game he played apart from that stretch, this guy looked like the next Canadian superstar. He led the OHL in scoring as a 17-year-old. That doesn't happen. That just never happens. That's a John
broke
Tavares.
McDavid's record, right?
Yeah. And okay, and he's playing with Zane Parekh. I'll give him that, who's another great prospect. But I mean, to work with great talent is a skill in and of itself. And if you're leading the league in points as a teenager, that's incredible. Or as a 17-year-old, that's incredible. His game sense has always been there. He's a great forechecker, and he's got so much speed. He's perfect for the Sharks. I mean, he's perfect for any team. He started the year, I think some people were a little bit down on him, maybe outside of the Sharks community. I think his last game before either he got hurt or he went off for the World Juniors or something, he had like 7 shots on goal. I think he also picked up a goal. He just looked like a force out there, and he was 18 years old. I don't think you go down from there when you're this talented. Yeah, he's picking up points right now. He had that overtime winner the other day. That was really nice. I love his game. He's a guy that to me makes the Sharks feel like just feel unstoppable. Like I don't really understand what Misa's ceiling could be, but if you were looking at him on any other team, you would say this is the face of that team. But he's maybe the third on the Sharks.
I mean,
maybe Chernyshov is. Maybe he's the fourth.
I mean, Chernyshov is, he's back up, and he's suddenly, that guy's a freight train, man. 2-3 strides, and he's got kind of that upright stance like McDavid, and he gets rolling. He doesn't quite have the first step that McDavid or Macklin has, but once he gets rolling, oh man, he's strong on the puck. He is dangerous. But yeah, it is. I mean, I would think right now 1 and 2 is Macklin and Will, but there's a lot of other players that people are looking at. Sam Dickinson has kind of been under the radar, but he, it takes defenseman time. They're all going to be Schaefer. I think the other thing that's hard about it for a Dickinson or a Misa is they're compared last year to what Celebrini with his 60 some odd points and Will Smith with his 40 some odd points, what they did in year number 1, which is it's a high bar to clear, but it has been fun to watch all these young studs start to be part of the narrative. And just before I move on to the next one, I just wanted to ask you about the change in NHL mentality about youth. And is it more that they're okay with playing these younger guys? Because I know the line forever is the NHL is not a developmental league. Or is it that these young players are coming in with a level of skill that simply it wasn't possible before? Like, yes, we could talk about Sid. We could talk about Connor McDavid, or even going back before with Patty Marleau and Joe Thornton when they were drafted 1-2 back in 97, that they also had men's bodies to go with it. But now I just feel like I look around everywhere and there's a stud 18, 19, 20-year-old, whereas you go back a decade, that wasn't the case.
Yeah, you know what? That's actually a really great question. I was just thinking about it while you were asking. I think it's 2 different factors here. One, I think a lot of GMs are kind of like the analytics movement is kind of taken over to the point where even if you're an old school GM, you understand what analytics are. You understand if a guy is playing well, even if you don't like his game, that you keep him around. But then 2, I think a lot of teams are realizing the value of playing a faster system, or the value of being a good skater and having good hockey sense, and how that fits into a good system. So if you're a guy like Michael Misa and you can read the game really quickly, you're a great skater. In the offensive zone, you're such an asset. And you're not really in a position where you're going to be getting crunched along the walls by Zdeno Chara, which, maybe happens to some of those 2010 rookies. The defensemen are a lot faster, and they're just going to shut you down on the rush
Mhm.
unless you're a quick player, a smart player with great hands, great passer, whatever. So I think what's kind of happening is GMs and coaches are seeing, okay, like Michael Misa is not going to be the guy who I want stepping up for a teammate right now. I don't want him. I don't want him going into every single board battle and being the number one option to retrieve pucks. But I mean, this guy is so good on the rush. Like he's such an asset to us. He's going to be one of our main drivers. So you want to, sometimes you scratch him now and then, and that doesn't necessarily mean you dislike his game. Maybe it's like, okay, watch it from above and see how this play develops, see how this happens. It's all part of it. I think the money puck kind of era of hockey is, yeah, like you want to teach these guys how to be good early on, and the systems mean that these guys are actually useful early on.
I wanted to touch on something you riffed about before we started recording, and that was that you had looked back at some of the metrics and stats on the Sharks year over year that kind of told you, who they are as a team. I mean, I think that's the best that I can set you up on it because you're the expert here. But what if you could explain a little bit better what you were referencing?
Yeah, so there's this proprietary data source called Instat that Big Head Hockey works with, and they have their data available in Excel. I built this stupid little thing, but it's like it's a little comparison year to year at even strength to look at how the team has improved or gotten worse relative to the rest of the league. So, for example, goals at even strength, the Sharks had the fourth biggest improvement out of any team, which is pretty good. But some of the other interesting stats here, the Sharks they also had the fourth biggest improvement in offensive possession, which is a pretty big improvement. Last year, it was mainly just Macklin who was getting in there offensively, but now it seems like many lines are managing to have sustained offensive pressure. They're also the fourth biggest increase in puck battles per game, which is pretty important. It means that they're getting to the pucks earlier and they're not letting plays develop outside of their control. But then on the flip side of it, they are seeing the biggest decrease in entries and breakouts per game of any team. So I think part of that is actually just how wild last season was for the Sharks. It was a lot of back and forth. And so maybe you have a lot of zone entries per game. And if you just look at that, that looks like, oh, okay, you're just pushing the tempo. But maybe that also means you're getting in the zone and then 2 seconds later it's out of the zone. And then it's getting back in and then back out. And mind you, these stats aren't counting just controlled entries or controlled breakouts. It's also dump outs. So if you're flipping it out of the zone or flipping it into the zone. So I think overall the statistical profile looks better. The biggest increase of anything is expected goals per shot, which I think is a really cool stat. It's kind of telling you how valuable are their shots at even strength. They saw the second biggest improvement of any team in increasing the value of their shots. So goes to show the team definitely made a lot of improvements. There's a lot more blue on this than there is red.
Fascinating, dude. Can I ask who made the number one jump in that stat if you know off the top of your head?
You know what? I got it right here. Let me have a look. Let's see here. XG per shot. Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, interesting.
There you go. And then tied for number 2 is Anaheim and Chicago.
Huh, fascinating.
There you go.
That's pretty cool. I wanted to touch on the parity that we've seen this year. And even though it's more obvious in the West, I think there's still tons in the East because you look at, teams in the East, if they were brought over to the West, they would be in the playoffs over in the West and it would shove down a bunch of teams here, out West. But are you expecting that to carry into the playoffs? Do you think we'll see a lot of upsets? Or do you have any, beyond that, any greater thoughts of why parity is the way it is this year in particular?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the big reason for the increase in parity is the floor of the NHL was raised. So I don't necessarily see the top teams getting a lot worse where, like a team like San Jose, for example, is competing with Vegas maybe, and you see how they did last year. It's not that Vegas got a whole lot worse. I think it's that teams like San Jose and Anaheim and even Chicago, they got a lot better. And I think what that means is there's a lot of teams kind of figuring out that they do have a window, and that window might be closing because of all these young teams that are finishing up their rebuild. Like out in the East, you got the Buffalo Sabres, Montreal Canadiens, and Detroit Red Wings. They're all done their rebuilds, it seems. Ottawa Senators as well. Where does that leave Toronto? Yeah. So I think that's kind of what's happening with the parity there. In terms of big time upsets, I think you just got to look at the Central Division to see which one of those teams is going home early, which is just incredible. I don't know what you do if you're the GM or coach of any of those teams, but yeah, it's pretty tough sledding for them.
No, man, it's going to be fun. And, from now until the middle of April when the regular season ends is going to be pretty wild. But I know you've got work to do, man, so I will let you go. But I appreciate your time as always. Again, if you're not checking out Big Head Hockey on YouTube in particular, but also on Twitter, on IG. I'm not a big TikTok guy. I have an account there. I assume you're on TikTok as well?
I just use it to scroll when I'm using the toilet. So
fair enough. Yeah. That's the best answer. But Francis, man, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. We'll talk soon. All right.
Thank you so much, Ted. Thank you.